This is the third video on Before, After, Beyond MBAs, the Knowledge Epitome 50-course curriculum on business that corrects the failings of traditional MBA programs. That's sort of an anti-MBA that undoes the harm done by them, except for a bits of Sloan and almost all of McGill and a few attitudes in Chicago. Career methods. This is going to be three types of courses. Career methods courses from the world's best people and performers, the early career methods course, the mid-career methods course, and the peak career methods course. Then we have globalizing business courses, which is detecting and handling cultures, fundamental business paradigms around the world, and future forms of quality, from totalizations of quality as a body of knowledge to globalizations of quality as a body of knowledge, and then applying those totalizations and globalizations to other bodies of knowledge to have as much worldwide impact as quality had. For example, totalizations of web science and globalizations of web science, totalizations of globalization and globalizations of globalization. And then the third one is detailed courses on the liberal arts of business, the actual philosophy of business course, the history of business course, the literature of business course, the culture of business course, and the design of business course. So those are the courses and the three types in this section that I'm going to talk about. Now, the career methods course comes from a study of 150 people with the world's most interesting careers that I did. And the early career methods, mid-career methods, and late peak career methods of these 150 people from 63 professions, 41 nations were quite distinct. And almost always the same, whether you were a painter or a nuclear physicist or a bioinformatics researcher or the president of universities or the founder of software ventures. Your early career methods, your mid-career methods, and your peak career methods were very comparable to others. And I teach them. I've noted the similarities, and I teach them, including all kinds of tools for career building and for managing situations and influencing people. Now, it's interesting how the people factor rises in all the methods as you get toward peak career methods. However, you can't do it unless your ideas and your techniques of managing these vital statistical business functional areas have been proven to people as credibility. And so, there are these smart MBA types who try to leap ahead without those proofs, and they have no credibility. They become tyrants and manipulators and psychopaths. And they steal 40% of the American wealth in 2008 in Wall Street for their third boat and their fourth home. And the people have not caught up with them yet, but laws will be made that do catch up with those guys. And then they're generated by our top colleges. So these evil psychopathic thieves are generated by the very top colleges we have. The mania for method and professionalism in McNamara, the body counting in Vietnam War, that's Harvard's way. That's why the Kennedy School has an SAT 800 requirement 30 years later still. Those trust your models, even if they're killing people and losing the war, that's the stupidity that you create when you worship models like Harvard does. Harvard has an absolute sickness at worshiping method. And that religion of method makes them blind, dangerous, and evil. And somebody like me needs to save them from it, because most people are too worshipful of them to feed the truth to power. Now, career methods. The mid-career methods is where people outgrow Harvard and the models that Harvard talks about. It's where people realize that no one model is safe, and that the only safety is in wide, diverse, comprehensive repertoires of model types that you pick and choose from to compensate for each other's weaknesses. So you find in mid-career people developing approaches of managing repertoires of ways rather than having a right way. The early career methods is people mastering right ways they see in elders that they admire. God, that guy's 80 times as productive as I am. I'm going to learn how he does that. That's all right. You need that. You have to go through that in life. But the mid-career methods are where you realize there's a cost to that guy. He's blind, and he's in love with himself, and he's dangerous. And you add a little Harvard psychopathology because they choose class presidents for their students, and you end up with a manipulative psychopath, greedy guy stealing from the world the rest of his career. So mid-career methods are where you make that transition beyond Harvard's religion of models, and you become unwilling to trust those kind of people and that kind of naiveness, and where you start looking for phony projects to shovel MBAs to be so they won't ruin anything vital to the business. Peak career methods are where you buy and sell companies and make the shape of your industry. There's no other word for it. Peak career methods are the ways you shape the history of your industry. It's where, making this company profitable is too easy and not enough for me. I'm a bigger guy, I'm a bigger lady than that. And where you see the opportunity to take the whole industry and move it where inevitably it's either going to go or die. And so these are scale operations. And interestingly enough, the peak career guys are like Frank Lloyd Wright, the guys who retool how they run discussions, how they run meetings, how they run work processes, how they run brainstorms, how they read and write. They redo the 5 basic cognitive interfaces of life when they start operating on that larger scale, because the interfaces that they depended on within a firm where they have a huge network built aren't going to carry them to that next level or scale of operation they want to operate at. Then we have globalizing businesses, detecting and handling cultures. This is transplanting careers across cultures, transplanting products across cultures, transplanting leadership regimes across culture, translating particular leaders across culture, translating strategies across culture, detecting and measuring and improving cultures, creating new, more powerful kinds of culture, and then the basic aspects of measuring and noticing culture, culture dimensions, culture powers, and culture tools. Then you have fundamental business paradigms. Business as spirit and or community of fate. That's Japan. Business as perfected expertise. This is Germany. And business as vast growth. That's China. And business as chasing profits. That's the U.S. East Coast. And business as changing democratizing the powers of ordinary people all over the world. That's Silicon Valley. And then business as new technology ecosystems. That's Silicon Valley. And business as info and design. That's the UK. And so you have these fundamental business paradigms interacting with each other inside of particular industries, inside of particular companies, and inside of particular management teams. And that's where the fascination is. Once you spot which paradigm some guy or some faction is in love with and supporting, and the ones they're blind to, then they are pawns in your hand for the rest of your career. Future forms of quality. Very interestingly, there was 22 totalizations and 22 globalizations of the body of knowledge called quality that changed all of business around the world in the 70s and 80s. Not anything from any business school. It was embarrassing. All the professors of all the business schools and all the thousands of articles by the Academy of Management, no one read, no one used, no one cared about. The Japanese were the teachers of the world. And the Japanese proved it. Their ideas not only were weird and very different, but they worked with enormous power. What else, if you apply the same 22 totalizations and globalizations to it, would have equal worldwide power? The web would. Globalization would. Biotech and biosense would. So we have now 4 bodies of knowledge beyond quality knowledge, where we can do the same global stuff with it that the Japanese did with quality. If you got the imagination, the guts to try. If you have ambition and not just greed. That's the difference between ambition and greed. The greedy guy just wants another boat in the house and prettier girls at the conferences. And the ambitious guy wants to change the world. West Coast, change the world. East Coast, greed and boats. Liberal arts of business. This is where truths get told. In other departments at universities and other fields, no one tells the truth. They lie and they exaggerate. The little monkeys all try to make themselves look important. Which wouldn't be pitiful if the earth were going to stay around for a long time instead of being engulfed by the sun. Now, the liberal arts of business, the philosophy of business. What's debt? Well, it turns out the definition and the actual practices of it extraordinarily are varied in the world today and across time. And so it means 20 different things. And it evolves from one to the other. There's a culture of debt theory that evolves. And people use the theory for their own benefit at different age and eras and situational circumstances. Similarly for profit, similarly for wealth, and a dozen other important vital business concepts. The history of business, the stories of who won, who shaped an industry, and how did they do it. You learn so much about facing unknowns and taking chances, and what's the right chances, what's the dumb chances. Henry Ford doing that wonderful thing of paying his workers enough to buy his products to make a market for himself, and then with the same kind of mindset, creating a utopian, religious, no alcohol, no sex town in Brazil that became a global laughingstock and proved to everyone that he was a Hitlerite fool. that foolishness came from his genius, and his genius came from that foolishness. And only he didn't see that they were combined. Everybody else, it was clear that there's a cost to this genius, and here's the cost. The literature of business, the stories. Now, this is interesting. Japan has a huge literature of people rebuilding the country after the war, and the emotions of dealing with competition and bosses and promotions and careers and family and products and customers. And the Americans can't write about it. The Americans take business so seriously and are so bad at it in many ways that that they can't tell interesting stories about it. The British have huge numbers of comedies about business. The Americans have very few comedies about business because they can't laugh. They can't laugh, I think, because of the tyranny of the workplace, the tyranny of bossing in American families and in workplaces, especially lower level employees in service businesses. The dictatorial habits of the American male are such that it's really not fun to be around. And so little of yourself is allowed, is permitted at work compared to Europe, where the whole person is invited, or East Asia, where the whole person is necessary. That perhaps maybe that's why. But you discover this in this thing. And then the cultures of business, and then the design of business.